ReInsurance Business recently had the pleasure of being on the ground at the 2025 Bermuda Risk Summit, where we caught up with reinsurance and insurance executives to hear their perspectives on the vital questions facing the industry today. In this episode of ReInsurance Business TV, we ask, what are the factors that set Bermuda apart as a reinsurance hub?
I think the crowd that's here is a testament to Bermuda's significance in the global industry. We're about over 450 registered attendees to the Risk Summit this year. As the world changes, risk evolves, and the solutions have to evolve with it. And I think Bermuda really sets itself apart globally in that respect. Right the way back to the 1950s with the birth of captives here, how that's been fine-tuned and perfected, to the insurance boom in the 90s, 80s and 90s with XL and ACE. And then right the way through to the 2000s, post-Rita, Wilma, Katrina, 9/11, and then the significance of the Bermuda alternative capital space with us being the leading domicile for ILS issuance. There's been a constant and steady stream of evolution and innovation that has enabled Bermuda to really emerge as the problem solver for global challenges, particularly in the risk sector. So that is really, I think, down to some of the things that, if you come to these conferences often, you'll hear us talk about a lot. And that's to do with the world-class regulatory framework that we have in place here. Bermuda is not just a domicile, it is a marketplace. So there is an ecosystem that exists here that supports the insurance and reinsurance market, the brokers, the capital capacity, the accountants, the legal professionals. This is in their DNA. They've grown up here. They know this like the back of their hand. There's access to talent here as well, and that collaboration between industry, government, and regulator that makes a jurisdiction very agile and enables it to really move quickly and respond to those challenges and really deliver meaningful solutions.
Bermuda has a very rich history in risk management. You know that the first modern captives were actually developed out of Bermuda. We are market leaders in insurance-linked securities. We are market leaders in terms of climate-related risk coverage. We've developed ourselves into a very sophisticated business jurisdiction. One thing that sets us apart is our regulatory environment. We have a level of regulatory clarity that is unmatched. We have a legal environment that provides a level of legal certainty. Then we look at our overall business ecosystem. We have the professional services that can actually support the industry, as well as the human capital on island that can actually support the industry. Bermuda's reinsurance market actually services and covers risk in about 150 countries worldwide. And we write over $150 billion of premiums annually. And so we do punch well above our weight level. But the government is also willing to work with industry when required to ensure that we have a business ecosystem that allows businesses to thrive.
So I guess when you think about Bermuda, there's kind of some long-standing benefits, if you like, of Bermuda. And then there's some factors which are perhaps more new. And I think, the long-standing ones, the obvious one is that strong relationship between industry, the government and the regulator. I think that's been vital. I think it's stood the test of time. If you look back at things like Solvency II equivalence, NAIC qualifying jurisdiction status, and then more recently, the OECD's sort of global tax initiatives, and how, as a country, it's been able to respond to those issues because of that strong relationship. So I think that's sort of a key long-standing benefit. Obviously, other ones in terms of a legal system based on English law, which a lot of the world is familiar with. So I think there's sort of long-standing benefits. There's then some elements that are probably more new. If I think think back even 10 years ago, there wasn't quite the same level of buzz around Bermuda as there is today. And I think some of that, we've obviously seen the industry grow in terms of its breadth, the life sector growing as well, and sitting alongside the P&C sector. But then I think more recently, we've got, if you like, more human capital on the island, just in terms of, we always had accountants and lawyers and all those things that you need to be able to run businesses. But I think that the broking presence has grown a lot, particularly growth of the specialty on the specialty side. And then I also think sort of niche consultancies and niche technology companies and so on that help with innovation. I think there's been a growth in those fields as well. So I think, Bermuda continues to evolve. It always kind of rises to whatever challenges are thrown at it. It's always the same fundamental reasons behind that, but it's just applied in different circumstances. But I do think there's a buzz, here today that a few years ago wasn't the case, and I think that's great for the future of the island.
I've answered this question a number of times in my career. I was a career regulator, so I was with the regulator for 10 years. And I've spent the last 7 years representing the Bermuda market. And what I think is really the key differentiator and has evolved in the last couple of years is the BMA's ability to take a very strong and robust regulatory environment and be pragmatic enough to create bespoke solutions for companies. So these are solutions that do not take them outside of the parameters that their regulations have established, which are, up to international standards, but are a way for companies to be able to sit down and have a dialogue and really acknowledges the unique nature of some of the companies that come here and their unique business models and create a solution that allows them to be as effective as possible when operating from Bermuda.
Yeah, I think we all know at this point, Bermuda is kind of the hotbed where insurance is headed to, and a lot of companies are flocking here for great reasons. Obviously, one of the easiest ones is around the infrastructure that's already here. The Bermuda and BMA has made it extremely easy for companies to set up and done so in such a governance and restricted way that folks feel confident in the ability for them to, survive here and also flourish here, as well as establishing something in a quick manner that allows them to assess the capital relief that they're going to hopefully get in this new regime. And that's kind of brings me to my second point is obviously folks are coming here for that capital relief. Tax benefits are obviously a great reason from the asset side of it, but also the economic framework from which the BMA set up from an actuarial perspective has allowed companies to reduce the capital required just because they're viewing the capital relief in more of an economic framework, as opposed to some of the other solutions or some of the other regimes out there, which are economic in nature. But I think the Bermuda regulation actually removes some of the complexity around that kind of gray area between where the assets and liabilities meet in the middle.
Yeah, certainly. I think there's a number of ingredients. Clearly there's a very strong and business-friendly regulator in the BMA. I think we heard yesterday in the keynote at the event a really good collaboration and commitment between the regulator, the government, and the marketplace. So that's, I think, pretty special and in a good shape for the future. I think another component, obviously, is Bermuda is a world leader in reinsurance as a community, and obviously you have a significant amount of players on the island writing property catastrophe business, casualty, and other specialty lines. Obviously, still a leader in captive insurance and has had a long sort of history in effectively self-insuring and providing solutions for some of the world's largest organisations. And I think thirdly, strategically, positioned geographically, serving North America and European markets, and being very open to trade with those markets as well. But having personally worked for a Bermudian reinsurer and spent some time on the island, I think one of the things that really sets it apart in my mind is the sort of quality and the talent that is available in the market and on the island. Bermuda seems to attract some very talented individuals that collaborate very well. and also I think work very well from a network perspective and work with the key associations on the island as well. So, I see similarities with the London market. Probably not as nice weather as Bermuda.
For us, as an MGA, Bermuda is one of the most unique places globally where you have a lot of capital and capacity from a reinsurance and an insurance perspective. You've got a very favorable regulatory environment, and I'll give you an example in a minute. And you've got the distribution. You've got all the major brokers who have hubs here. On the regulatory piece, as we've grown into different geographies, we're learning how important that is to have a strong regulator who's knowledgeable. And to give you an example, to get up and running in Bermuda, that was a 1-week process to work with the regulators. In different jurisdictions, that can take up to 2 years to get a similar output. And we've got very specific regulators who are focused in insurance, and that's been a huge asset to us in our growth curve.
Right. And for us setting up an excess casualty platform, we were fortunate to come into Bermuda with a carrier that hadn't written business here before, but has very strong paper. And the Bermuda Monetary Authority recognized it within a week. As Tim said, we were able to get up and running. And we find that this is a centralized marketplace with a lot of professional brokers, clients, underwriters. And as the pandemic has ended, we found our clients coming back to Bermuda as that centralized place to find capacity.
Well, I mean, Bermuda is a beautiful place, and it's geographically located close to the east coast of the U.S., has a deep talent pool. It is an operating market, so from a reinsurance perspective, it's not. It has an advantage over a domicile, where the regulatory attributes are the most commonly cited. It's an equivalency due to all the work that's been done from a regulatory perspective, having equivalency, having strong relationships with US and UK and European regulators, very important for us. It's got a risk-based evaluation framework. It works well with companies like ours that have been developing and building new products for many years. And I would say that the economic basis for regulation is helpful when you're looking at structures for alternative capital and capacity through segregated accounts and incorporated segregated accounts. So we find that flexibility, deep market pool of talent and business, and it's a beautiful place to live and work. It's my third time being in Bermuda, previously with other companies, and so this time I've been here for about 11 years.
Well, thanks for the question, Mia, and thanks for the opportunity to be here to speak with you. So this is our 4th year for the Bermuda Risk Summit, and really that's the question that is crystallized each year of why Bermuda and what sets us apart. So first and foremost is global leadership. So our industry, the P&C industry, is very established here. ABIR just celebrated its 32nd anniversary. Really, this market got its training wheels off after Hurricane Andrew in Florida, and immediately large reinsurers established a capital base in Bermuda, and were able to support smaller insurers throughout the world, but primarily the United States. And so that global leadership is on island. We've seen some of those global leaders from day one. They moved to Bermuda, they had their children here, now their children have graduated, and they're still here and committed to Bermuda. So we're very fortunate those global leaders have stayed in Bermuda, and they're committed to the island.
So my understanding, because as AROC, I don't deal with really any of the transactions or with them, the BMA so much specifically, is that they're just flexible and nimble, very responsive, and they know the space really well. They know the insurance and reinsurance space really well, have established themselves as a leader in that spot. And for legacy, for AROC, our members, I think that the BMA is a really great partner in that because they know the space well. And they can stop and learn from it, listen to the parties, and come to the best possible result.